and welcome to No Story Stagnates with me, Ernie Boxall. And it is my honour today to introduce Renee Hanks from the United States of America. So, Renee, can you tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do, please?
Certainly. So my name is Renee Hanks, and I'm a business consultant and fragrance expert in the luxury sector. Live in Ardmore, Oklahoma, which is the hub between Oklahoma City and Dallas, Texas. So beautiful place, and that's pretty much what I do.
Okay, now that's interesting. Before we start, can you tell us more about you when you say the work that you do? Business consultant, and you work with fragrances.
Correct.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Certainly. So in regards, Ernie, to consulting, what I do in that particular sector is I help people with software. A lot of people don't understand that they need certain technologies to scale, okay? Yes. And they need them from the ground up. But some people already they get going, but they don't have the software in place that will actually help them scale. And so they're doing things that are not necessary, and they need those for processes, for systems, for automation. And so I'm a software expert, and I help people. I've already done those things. Okay. So I help people. Okay. You need this. What's your industry? You need this, you need that. You don't need this. This is why you need that. So that's what I do there. And in regards to luxury branding, what I do there as a fragrance expert is I've done a speaking engagement with Procter & Gamble for fragrance exploration and how the brain receives scent, how the brain processes that, what it has to do with emotion, memory, and so forth. Well, you can pull that into branding, right? So that people have a certain feel, a certain memory, a certain thought about you and your brand. So that's what we do there. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to rack my brains because, after 70 years on this earth, I've smelled a lot of smells. And excuse me. And but you seem to be approaching it from a different angle altogether, from one I've never heard before. So that's really interesting. But Renea, we'll make a start, and I'll ask you the question I ask all of my guests. Do you know how your mother and father met?
Yes. They actually met. They met at a pub.
Right.
So.
And do you know any more?
Well, my mom was the bartender, and he owned an oil company. And he would always come in there. Back then, a lot of oil men met for business or whatever, and then they'd go golfing together and so forth. And so that's how he met her. And he was quite a bit older than her, but they got along great. And so that's just how that worked out. It was like crazy, but
so awesome. You know your story from before you were born. That's how your story could start. My mum and dad met in a pub. Because, funnily enough, and people have heard this before, but my mother and dad met when my father tripped over coming out of a pub and knocked her over. That's how they met. So we have something in common there, Renee.
That's awesome.
Move on. From the years 1 to 10, do you have a story that you feel has made a real memory or a real difference, taught you a lesson?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would probably say maybe second grade. There was a young girl that was treated very, her name was Angie, and she was treated very cruelly by the other kids. And I came home and I was crying, and my dad said, what are you crying about? And I said, well, the kids were hurting Angie's feelings today. And he said, yeah, but why does that bother you? What does that have to do with you? And I said, well, because it hurt my heart and I could feel what she was feeling.
Yeah.
So I learned empathy
Yeah.
and compassion, and understood what to do with that at a very young age. So that's probably what I'd say is one of the biggest lessons from that, from
Wonderful.
1 to
Thank
10.
you. And for the English audience, Renee, can you tell us how old would you be at that time?
Sure. In second grade, I would have been 7, because third grade I was 8.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. How did you enjoy school at that age, or not?
Oh, I enjoyed it a lot.
Right.
I had a lot of fun. I just soccer, just playing. I never did that growing up after that, but soccer, recess, playing, math. I loved math. I loved the math competitions on the blackboard.
Uh-huh.
I love to win. I noticed that about myself. I loved winning. But not to beat my opponent or make them feel bad, but I always loved to win. Like, it was just so much fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that and making friends. I love to just when new people would come, I liked that. I liked when new kids would come to school. So that was fun. So
Yes. Yeah. Brilliant. We'll move on. 11 to 20, maybe 1 or 2 stories in that age, because I don't think anybody went from 11 to 20 without any stories.
No, wow. Okay. I can think of several right off top.
I can imagine.
One in particular, rather crazy. You had mentioned my father.
Yes.
Well, that's my father that adopted me. That's not my biological father. Okay, so with that said, my best friend, her name was Christy.
Yes.
And she was a cheerleader. This was 8th grade. That would have been 13 going on 14 that particular summer.
Uh-huh.
So we were riding on my moped that I had gotten that summer, and that was a really big deal. And so I got this moped, and she was riding on the back of it with me, and we were talking, and I said, yeah, I don't remember how it got started, but she said something about her real dad, Barry. And I go, what? I said, that is so cool. Not only are we best friends, but like both of our real dad's name is Barry.
Wow.
And we were just kind of oblivious, right? It's a very small town. And so I said, well, what's your dad's last name? And she said his last name. And then I said, oh, what? And then we pulled over in our subdivision, and we looked at each other, and we were like, oh, we are sisters. No wonder people kept saying you guys look alike. Like, now we get it.
Wow.
And so we approached our parents about it, and they said, yeah, that's actually true. So wow. Yeah, you are biological sisters. You have the same father. And we just thought that was amazing. We were not like furious at our parents, or we were already best friends. And so we thought, how incredible is this? So I would say that was like the major thing. And then to look, it gave me like additional love for my dad, because the one that raised me, and that adopted me, it gave me like a really more in-depth love and appreciation and honor towards him, because I thought, wow, like you really love me, like a lot, like you're amazing. So that's how I felt about him. That just really helped our relationship even more than it already did, because I thought, he was amazing. And then I would probably say from there, learning about networking, building relationships, friendships. In high school, I would have friends in different cliques, is what they were known as. But that's really not common. You're usually supposed to be in one little group, but I refused to be in that group. I wanted to be friends with this person over here and that person over there. And I was ridiculed one time in particular that I can remember, and this certain set of friends was wanting me to go to lunch with them, and these people were wanting me to go to lunch with them. And I said, well, I'm actually going to go to lunch with this friend here. And they said, why do you want to go to lunch with her? And I said, because I like her.
Yeah.
And so I went on, and I didn't worry about approval, peer pressure. I could just be my own person. And that was something that I very much, that's a life lesson that I still do today. I do not let any person decide who's gonna be my friend.
And that brings up the question then, is that with that mind of your own, first of all, were you thinking about business then? Did you recognize?
Not really.
No. And how did you react to teachers who were maybe telling you to do things that, did you always agree with them?
No, I didn't. Now I would say definitely that I would obey them still as I did not believe in talking back to teachers or disrespect. Right. No way.
Right.
Not in that regard, but I do remember that there was one teacher in 10th grade. His name was Mr. Phelps, Kenny Phelps, and he taught marketing, and he specifically taught on Zig Ziglar, See You at the Top.
Right.
And I thought, this is pretty interesting book. But in 10th grade, and I didn't really realize, like, what you want to call maybe like the God wink or something. In 10th grade, I wanted to have my own money. Right. So I took a job at Wendy's. And even though my dad gave me more money than I made an entire weekend or week with these people, but I wanted my own money. And my dad thought that was really cute. That's what he said. He said, that's so cute. But I did. I wanted to make my own money. And Zig Ziglar's concepts, I really like those, and those really stuck with me, like See You at the Top and how you treat people. And, his real big thing, Zig Ziglar's, as I'm sure you probably know, is character, you know, and how you treat others. So I really resonated with that. I really loved those qualities about Zig Ziglar. And matter of fact, he has one of the best sales books of all time. I was just reading about that yesterday, which is, the Secret of Closing, and Secrets to Closing the Deal. And I've thought about that a lot, but that's the main factor. I would say I didn't really recognize it. I thought I wanted to be a stockbroker, but I just wasn't great at that. So.
And again, as you talk there, Renee, you remind me a little of one of my daughters. At 13, myself and her mum decided that our relationship had gone its course. And I look back, I was involved in sport. I was a soccer coach. Oh. I hated losing, which meant that if we lost on Saturday, then I was a pig with a sore head on Sunday. On Monday, I'd start to think about Tuesday's coaching. On Wednesday, I'd start to think about Thursday's coaching. On Friday, I was thinking about Saturday's game. And on Saturday, I was at the game. And so eventually she said, I've had enough. And away she went. And that meant that my daughter at 13 was coming up to her exams. And mum and dad had split up. And when I say she went off the rails, not in crime or anything, but she did spend a lot of money. And she got into a lot of debt. But then from 18 onwards, she started to work 2 or 3 jobs. And she would take agency work in places where people said, there's no work here. She found work. She went out and got work. And even now, she is looking to make perhaps one final move. And that means that she's got to work in the hospital and she wants to go to university. And she walks 3 to 4 miles every day to work and back to save money. Again, the two of you seem to have a very good
kudos to her
mindset. Yeah. So that's brilliant.
I would love to meet her.
I'll perhaps connect you.
Thank you.
21 to 30, Renee. A story and a lesson.
21 to 30. I'm I would say probably for sure. Wow. Um, wanting I would say probably 21 to 30. Square peg round hole.
Right.
Don't do that. So that's exactly how I would describe that whole time frame, is trying to square peg round hole something. And that means putting a square peg into a round hole. It's not going to happen. And just beating and beating and beating that thing, it's not going to happen. And so I did that. And that continued on for a few years past 30 until like 33. But then I realized, okay, this it's not going to work. I can't make it work.
Yeah, I don't want to push. And if we get into areas not comfortable with, but square pegging round hole in terms of your work or relationships or both.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. I'm definitely an open book. Doesn't bother me. It was definitely my relationship. And I thought, if as you was shared, something very close to your heart and intimate to you is your marriage. The same with me. I thought, if I can just be just this wonderful person in my mind of like the very best that I can be, keep the house the cleanest, work so hard, not only work a job or two jobs that I would do, sometimes 2 and 3 jobs. I would take 2 jobs, and then I would take another job working as like merchandising or a couple of hours on the weekend, and then also run a business, and started my candles. I was doing so many things. I do all of that. Yes, and run a home. Yes, I did. And my kids can testify to that. I kept the home extremely clean. And, so, I mean, I was just working myself to death, trying to, there's no way, Ernie, that could have continued for 10, 15 years. There's no way that could have, that went on for about 6.5 years, but there's no way that, when I realized, oh, this is not going to work. Well, I tended to do that then, and I transferred that into professional situations. And once again, square peg round hole. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm actually doing this in business. I've got to stop doing that. So I need to put a round peg and a round hole and a square peg and a square hole. And so that's what I've now been doing, just getting hyper focused and, and changing that. But that's definitely what I would say, just in a nutshell. And the lesson that I learned was not to do that. And it was a really hard lesson, because I wouldn't really say that I'm hard headed in that regard. But, people say that. But I think really more along the lines of what this attorney friend of mine, what he observed. He said, if I could describe you in one word, I would say that perseverance, like you persevere. And so it made me like really look that word up. Like, we think we know what words mean, but I'm a writer. So not really, not until you really look up like the origin of the word and so forth.
Yes.
So I looked at perseverance, and, and it talked about, continuing in the face of obstacles. And I thought, that's exactly what I do. Like, I literally do that. That's a good observation. I've done that my whole life.
Yeah.
And, but I have to know when to stop. You can be a person that perseveres, but you also need to know when to like stop, you have to know when to stop. I would say that for sure.
Wow. You're talking my language. A lady in America, I first met her in 1964 when she was a pen friend. And in 68, I went over to meet her. It didn't go particularly well. Tried to write in the meantime and never got a reply. And then 2002, the American election came up on the computer. And I wrote 4 lines about it and forgot all about it. And then about 3 months later, I went back to that particular entry. My 4 lines were underneath, and I just glanced underneath. I was your pen friend 36 years ago. And so we started to talk again over the computer. And she told me that in the meantime, she'd always known she was different, but she didn't know that she had the powers of a shaman.
Mm-hmm.
She had healing powers that she
Oh.
had no idea of.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me to go to, I was a shiatsu therapist by then. She said, go to your room, treatment room. I'll be in mine. When we call for the first time, close your eyes, set a timer for half an hour, and ring me back. And so I set my timer for half an hour. When I rang her back, she said, did anything happen? And I said, well, I saw this image of a fox jump into me. A wolf. And she said, well, I've christened you Coyote because you seem to have persevered. And whenever you've been down, you've got back up again. They haven't been able to defeat you.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been a hard road. And most of the reasons that I've been down, I now realize are for the decisions that I made.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. Mm-hmm.
so it went on. And 3 years ago, it got to a point where my business had flatlined.
Uh-huh.
Bigger people were coming in with more money and taking over my clients.
Okay.
I didn't want to pack up. I didn't want to give in at all. And I was looking at the time when the roof would be taken off me. It was that bad. And so I decided that I would pack up, finish, just enlighten and just do what I could with life from then on.
Uh-huh.
What happened from then on was people suddenly started to get in touch with me. And the business started to grow again. So I'm back here because I persevered. So I understand what you mean there.
Yeah.
At that period, 21 to 30, did you have children then or later?
I already had my daughter Alexis, and at 22 years of age, that's when I was filled with the Holy Spirit and began my relationship with the Lord. And then I had my children, my boys,
Yes.
you know, and so that was the formidable time of child raising. And so I had a misconception that and it was part of just being immature, you know, as a Christian. I was thinking that I needed to stay in this situation because that's what he would want me to do. But I didn't know him the way that I know him now. And that's just, he calls us to peace. And so that's definitely not the scenario. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for learning that during that time period for sure. And just I would say that was so much fun, you know, like just raising the kids. Like I've had so much fun with them. It was just, that part was a blast. That part was just an absolute blast. And I can look at their pictures now and just laugh and think about some of the wonderful things that we did together.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so
wonderful.
yeah, that was wonderful.
So we'll go from 31 to 40. I assume that you are about 40, Renee. Yeah.
I'm 51. Yeah.
31 to 40.
Thank you. Yeah. So 31 to 40. This is kind of mind blowing. But I had a house burned down, and then 6 months after that, then the next one flooded out by the North Texas flood, because I had went back home to Texas, and I was living in Texas, and I was born and raised in Texas.
Right.
And so during that 6-month time frame, the really crazy thing is, you know, that the word promises us that the Holy Spirit leads and guides us into all truth, right? He told me before the house was burning down that it was burning. I was not even home. I was in another place. I was at my brother's visiting. And he told me to not hurry because I felt like I needed to hurry up and get home. And he said, don't hurry. It's not there.
Right.
And I was like, what? And so I got there and it wasn't, you know,
No.
I mean, it was burning. It was burning. So, you know, I just once again thought about, you know, wow, like that's incredible. And then like 6 months later, then the flood happened, like about 3 feet of flood. And so then what I thought about was I thought about two things. One, I thought about possessions mean like nothing. Like, okay, so it can all burn up. Like,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you something interesting. When they came to the home with the fire, that when the firemen came, because they have to do an inspection, you know, they
Yeah.
need to know like what started the fire or whatnot. So the fire inspector from my hometown, Gainesville, Texas, his name is Jody Henry. He came to the house and he said, what was going on here? What was in here? Talking about my living room. And he said, what was right here? Because it was like a very black, just like very dark spot that, and then it went out from there, right?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I don't know. A fan? I had an oscillating fan there. And he went, how did you have that hooked up? And I said, I had an extension cord. And he said, oh yeah, no. In these older homes, because I had an older, like kind of not a historical home, but it was an older home, and Victorian kind of style.
Yeah.
And he said in these older homes they have copper wiring,
Ah,
and so it's older. So inside, in the back of, you know, like the fountain, you
yeah.
know, the, I don't know what you call it, but in that particular part in the inside of the house, that in the wiring, he said that copper wiring is old
Yeah.
and it will set fire very easily. He said when you plug in something like an oscillating fan, it has to be plugged in directly to the outlet. And I was like, I like did not know that. And so then they have like a news crew actually that came out. And the news person asked me, he said, if you don't mind me asking, like, there's like nothing happening in this room. Like, it looks like it wasn't even in a fire
Right.
in the back room. And he said, what's going on here? He was trying to figure out because it was vastly different from the rest of the house. And I said, well, this is where I pray.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was completely like, it looked like nothing compared to the rest of the house. It was amazing. And so then when the other house flooded, I thought to myself, if I had a choice to go, you know, like how my stuff was going to go, and like I would go, like, just let it burn up, because at least you know
Yeah.
what is good or not. With the flood, something can look good, but then mold can get in it, and all kinds of stuff. But I learned to hold things loosely. And so yeah. I do not I don't hoard possessions and things like that. And if I feel that I'm liking something a little too much, like I'm really caring about it too much, I'll give it away.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to hold them. I don't want them holding me.
Right. And again, that must have been stressful at the time, though. When the house flooded, where did you go to live?
With my brother, actually, in
Right.
Oklahoma. And the odd thing was, when things kept happening in life, kept going back to Oklahoma, and I was like, I don't want to be in Oklahoma. Like, I mean, and I would keep like fighting it, right? And
Yeah.
it's so funny, Ernie, because I'd be like, okay, are we done here? Okay. And then I'd pack back up and try to go right back home to Texas. And then something would happen, and I'd have to come right back up here. And I was like, okay, I will stay. All right. I get it. And so now that I did, then, you know, all kinds of wonderful things began happening.
Right.
But I had to be okay with that.
Yes.
You know, and so I had to be at peace with that. And you know, now that I'm not saying that that's the way that it's supposed to be forever and ever, you know, amen. I don't know that, Ernie, but
no.
Stop fighting like when your life is going in a trajectory that it's something that you've been praying and asking for, and you're going in that direction. You've got to be open about where that path is. You can have a plan, but there's greater plans than the plans you got. And so you have to be willing to go those ways, you know. And that, I think that's the biggest thing, is being willing and being open, you
That's
know.
the big lesson. Yeah, that's the big lesson.
Not letting your fears
Wonderful.
overtake you. I think you really, really need to think about, am I feeling fearful?
Yes.
And then you think about something that Anthony Robbins said. He had two people, and I think this is really important, that it might be helpful to you, because I know it was for me. Was getting ready in Fort Lauderdale. I was getting ready to go into an exotic showroom, okay, where like Ferraris, Lamborghinis.
Yes.
And as I was walking up, my heart began like racing, and I thought, oh, I'm having a panic attack. And then I remembered what Anthony Robbins was saying. No, this one person said, that was a singer, said that it was, she was very frightened. He wouldn't divulge her name; it was private. But she recognized it as fear, and she would say, "I just don't know what, you know," and she would get into that.
Yeah.
And so she explained, and so Anthony said, "What are you feeling?" She said, "Well, you know, my heart is racing, you know." And so it's negative.
Yeah.
Then this other guy that doesn't mind saying who he was, Bruce Springsteen, he's talking with Anthony, and he tells him how, you know, man, he was like, I'm just like super pumped, and I'm like so excited. And he goes, "What are you feeling?" And he said, "Man, my heart is racing."
Yeah.
And he described everything this woman described, but in a positive way. He said, "I'm just like, you know, excited, in other words, to get out there." Okay. So I remembered those two examples, and I was like, all this time I've been excited, and I thought something bad. And so when I realized that, I thought, I'm going in here. I'm going here. I'm excited because I love race cars. I love exotic cars. I love fast cars. I love them.
Brilliant.
And so I thought, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And do you know, when I saw that in my head, Ernie, it went away like that. I mean, then I was just chill. So that's what I'm saying, you know, recognize, am I fearful? And is this fear that's in place real, protecting me? But is my brain also trying to sabotage my future?
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. What did you buy eventually? Did you buy one of the cars?
No, haven't bought any one of them yet. But, you know, and then I think about that, but actually, you know, if I would have to say, probably a dream car would probably not be those, although it can be fast, but be more luxurious. And I've always loved a Bentley. So, you know, a convertible Bentley, Continental, that's my favorite.
Absolutely.
They're gorgeous.
Renee, we're coming on to 41 to 50. And we could take it to 51. So over the last 10 years, a story and a lesson.
So this last part here, well, first of all, during this period, I've had a phenomenal experience with some really, really wonderful people.
Yeah.
And I knew when, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but when I met this person, I actually met them on LinkedIn, but when I met another person that's related to them, the minute that I saw him, I knew, like when he looked in my eyes and I looked in his eyes, I knew that life was changing.
Right.
And I don't know what that actually meant or where that was going, but I just knew that, oh, something is very, very different here. Okay. Right. And so we became really, you know, good friends, and like working together and different things like that. And I learned a lot about different types of things and ventures that, you know, that they were involved in. And it was just so much fun, that learning experience, and, you know, is still, you know, to this day, but it was just fun. And just seeing the change and the different things, and looking outside of, you know, like when you're in your area, you just, you're just in your own little box.
Yeah.
And this helped me to really like get more of a global perspective of not just how business is done, but how people see things in life
Uh-huh.
culturally.
Uh-huh.
And that was really beautiful. And so just many different things and just the different people that I've had a pleasure to meet and so forth. And so I can definitely say that that's 100% attributed to LinkedIn, because I did meet them through
Wow.
LinkedIn, and just
Yeah.
like I've met you, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy, but I will say that it is my favorite network because of that, because I mean,
Yes.
people just, you can just meet so many wonderful people.
Absolutely.
And yeah, some have been friends, some I've done business with, and you know, it's been really wonderful, and I've learned so much. So yeah, I definitely say that it was definitely learning and growing from 41 to 51. So for sure.
And over that period, have you traveled much abroad, away from America?
No, I got invited to, and then some things happened with me physically, and I wasn't able to. But I got invited to go to Europe, to the south of Italy, and to Monaco. But now, hopefully, when it opens back up, I will be able to do that. But as far as like here in the U.S., just mainly Miami. So yeah.
Well, there'll be an invitation to England when you go.
Wonderful. You know, I've always wanted to see England. I mean, I just always have. And my grandfather is actually a Stockwell, so that's wild.
Yeah. Well, Renee, it's been a real pleasure. We can wrap it up there, unless, do you have a lesson that you would give to people now? And how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, well, thank you for that, Ernie, and thank you for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. You've asked me questions that I've never thought of, actually. So yeah, thank you for that. You've given me something to think about beyond this today. I would say, if I wanted to share anything with anyone that would really help them, is if you want a dream, pursue your dream. Because I know people say that all the time, and it's kind of cliche, but it's really, really true. Like, it's great to help people build their dreams, but don't forget yours.
Oh, wow.
Do not forget your dream. Do not forget your dream, because even fulfilling other people's, you know, dreams in business, right? We get so caught up in their dream. I know that you probably do this as well, that we lose sight of, like, wait a minute, like, wait, I mean, I've also got to do my dream. And you have to take time for yourself and really just kind of always do that personal inventory. And as far as like getting in touch with me, that's solidsolutionstoday.com, or you know, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, definitely, because I love to engage with people there. And that's Renee Hanks. And then I've got subsequent company pages. I have Moda Fragranza and Solid Solutions Today. I will be fixing that up today and rearranging that. So yeah, but yeah, and YouTube.
and just the last thing you said there put something else into my mind, that we must all, both of us must know garage mechanics who've got lousy cars, decorators whose homes look a mess. You know,
this is true. This is so true.
They've spent so much time doing other people's work that when they get home, they haven't got time for their work.
Well, you know what, Ernie? I'll tell you something funny on EndNote. On my YouTube channel, I got grandfathered in a while back before they made all of the stipulations. Okay, as far as you have to meet so many parameters before you can have your personal name. So I still have Renee Hanks, and I did that years ago. Well, I did just what you're talking about. I've created great content and all this really amazing stuff for other people, and also private, like where other people can't see it because non-disclosures, etc. However, that's something that I actually addressed in the intro trailer, because I was like, you know, you're going to say where are my videos? I know that. I'm now creating them. So, you know, give me a minute.
Great.
But yes, I do believe that we should definitely practice what we preach, but it's hard when we're in the middle of working for everyone else.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Renee, really, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've been a real
Thank you,
pleasure
Ernie.
to talk to. If you could stay behind just for a minute or two afterwards when I switch off,
Sure.
and I just
Sure.
we'll have a finishing chat. So that's
Okay.
it, everybody. Renee Hanks, and if you go and look onto LinkedIn for Renee, she's already told us that is her preferred method of meeting people. So
Hey.
do that. Thank you, Renee. Take care.